Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're back for another full day review and wear test of the new Anastasia Beverly Hills Impeccable Blurring Second Skin Matte Foundation. So I have been trying this over the last couple of days, so I will get into my thoughts momentarily. But first let's talk about the details of this foundation. So this retails for $46 US or 61 Canadian, so she is very pricey. This is a medium to full coverage velvet matte foundation with a non-comedogenic formula that perfects skin with a blurring second skin finish for up to 12 hours. So it says that this is a long-wearing water-based formula that blurs pores, fine lines, and wrinkles for up to 12 hours, powered by precision blur technology, features hyaluronic acid for a smooth, flawless finish and a second skin feel. But this is what the box looks like. I do think it does look quite nice. I got the shade 0CR, so definitely one of the very, very lighter shades. So I believe this has about 25 shades. This is also made in Italy. It has a 12-month shelf life, and it also actually has 1.18 fluid ounces of product, which is slightly more than the typical foundation, which has 1 fluid ounce. So this is the bottle that you're going to get with this foundation. So you do get a really heavy frosted glass bottle. You also get this gold cap here as well. And it is rectangular. It's a little bit thinner on the side. So we're going to be wearing this for about 8 to 10 hours, depending how my day goes. But I am going to try for at least 8 hours. We're going to wear it all day. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to share what I've learned over the past few days of wearing this foundation. And of course, I will do a final check-in at the end of the day, so you can see how this wore on me throughout the day. But let me zoom you in and we can get into putting this on the face. All right, so I have you zoomed in nice and close. I do just have my eyes done, my brows are done. I don't have my brow gel in yet, but eyes and brows are done. I have a little bit of concealer on my under eyes just to sort of clean up some of the eyeshadow mess, but let's get into putting on the foundation. I just have my skin prepped with my Rev for Intense Hydration Cream as always. So I've just done a pump and a half of the foundation on my palette, and it's definitely a thicker formula. And I'm just going in with my BK Beauty 101 brush. So when I do see these thicker formulas, I'm definitely thinking we're going to get some really great coverage with this foundation. And like I mentioned, I got the shade 0CR. Initially, I feel like this shade ends up looking quite a bit more yellow, which is strange given that I picked out a cool rosy shade. And while I initially feel like it does look almost a little bit yellow, once blended out, I feel like it does end up looking quite nice. The shade match, I would say, is probably the best one for me. And I feel like you can also see how quickly that blended out and completely canceled out that one side of my face. So we're definitely going to get a really great coverage with this. I was anticipating that. That is part of the claims, medium to full, so I am expecting that. And I do love a good full coverage option. I have been really, really happy lately with these newer matte foundations that are coming out that are also really, really comfortable and lightweight on my dry skin. So I've been loving that. So I'm really hoping that this one sort of stands up to all of that. I can definitely see on application, looking at it right now, I do feel like it does have this almost sort of velvet looking dry down. It's not quite a skin-like finish. You can definitely tell I've got makeup on. I do think if I tried to build this too much, it might get cakey, but I do think it looks really nice. Definitely blended out very, very easily and seamlessly. Yeah, so we definitely get a ton of coverage. I mean, if you compare the two sides, we're definitely getting a ton of coverage. Love that. So let's get into the other side as well. Now, I recently reviewed the Dior Hydra Nude Foundation, and one thing I noted in that video was a slight change I've made toward my approach to foundation review and wear tests. So I noticed in 2024, toward the end, any foundations that I was reviewing, one thing that I was doing was sort of getting them in during the week and then sort of wear testing them on my own, leading up to filming my actual review and wear test. And I feel like that just gives me more time with the product, of course, but I feel like that just allows me to get to know the product so much more, test out the properties of it, and sort of give you much more of my thoughts during my review. I do love to watch these first impression reviews as well, but I just like to go into a lot of my videos with a little bit more understanding and knowledge of a product. And I feel like foundation is one of those products that I have to do. I feel like eyeshadow palettes, blushes, bronzers, I'm good to film my first interaction with that product. But foundation and concealer are definitely things that need to be tested out and worn over a longer period of time. So while I love to get that review up right away, because I know that's obviously what gets the views, I would much rather wear it a couple days first so I can bring more value to my video when it does go up. So that is what I am doing going forward with my foundation reviews. Okay, so now we are all blended out. I do feel like the shade match ends up being pretty good. I still feel like it's not really a cool rosy shade. I feel like if anything, it probably leans a little bit more neutral, but overall it does seem a little bit more yellow, and I don't necessarily love that. But I think we can definitely agree that I got a really great coverage from this. I do think it looks quite nice. Touching my face, it has a slight tackiness to it. It's nothing crazy. I would say it feels like a little bit more than skincare. When I reviewed the new Dior Hydra Nude, I said that that just feels like skincare, and that's very much true. This one does feel a little bit heavier. This one gives a little bit more coverage, but it is feeling a little bit heavier than that. Let's get into some powder. So I did do some concealer on my under eyes, but the foundation actually did such a good job on coverage that I don't feel like I need to add concealer anywhere else. So I'm just going into my Kosas baked powder. I've been back into this one recently. I'm just taking this on a puff to set my under eyes. So initial thoughts on this foundation. Thoughts I've gotten from the last couple days. I do think this gives us a really, really good coverage. I do think it is comfortable. It is definitely heavier than the Dior or even the Huda Beauty Easy Blur. Definitely heavier than those. But it definitely does give a good coverage and it does feel comfortable. Even though I say it is a little bit heavier than some others, it's still very comfortable. And I definitely expected this one to dry down and just feel very matte, like say the Huda Easy Blur. That is probably my absolute favorite matte foundation. When that one dries down, I can touch my face and my face feels matte. With this one, it doesn't matter throughout the day. When I touch my face, it does still feel like I have something on it. There is almost a slight tack, almost like a skincare type feel. So it's not the type of tackiness that is going to cling to my hair and things like that, which I appreciate, but it definitely doesn't dry down the way that I thought it might. And this one does settle into lines as well. So that is just something I want to mention because I definitely had that experience too. Now let's add some bronzer. I'm just going to grab my tried and true, my Lancome bronzer. I know I always use this, but it's my favorite. So just going into this to bronze up the face. I don't have too much going on today. I am just sort of working away. I did have a fairly active day the other day and when I was wearing this, and I did notice, like I said, it was sort of settling into lines. We had some appointments out at the house. I asked my husband his thoughts, and he was actually the one who pointed out that it was sort of settling into lines. He is under very, very strict instructions to give me his very honest thoughts. And I know he doesn't want to tell me that, but he did say that he noticed it was settling a little bit. He also told me I looked yellow later that day. So that kind of solidified my thoughts on this foundation shade pulling yellow, because if he's telling me my skin has a yellow tone to it, there's definitely something about this shade I don't love. But so far, I do think this is going to be a really, really great full glam type foundation because look how perfected and smooth my skin looks. I do think that's very impressive. Okay, I'm going to go into the Kosas Blush is Life Baked Blush in the shade Swoon. This one just has that sort of mauvier undertone to it, which I'm kind of looking for, especially with my eyelid today. It's going in very lightly. I like this blush a lot. I like this shade a lot too. I should probably leave it out and play with it a little bit more. Okay, let me zoom you out. I will finish up the rest of my face and then I will come back to get the wear test started. So one thing I'm noticing right away is that it is already sort of settling into some of my smile lines and things like that, but I did powder that area. Keep in mind, I powdered my T-zone and my under eyes, so I don't really love that I'm already noticing that the foundation has settled into some smile lines. It does sort of still feel like I just have a thick moisturizer on my skin, which could definitely mean that this is going to be very hydrating and very comfortable and it's not going to look dry at any point. I do think it has definitely a soft matte finish because I don't feel like I have a glow anywhere that I don't want to be glowing. So I do really like the finish. I love the coverage. Definitely still feels comfortable. I'm definitely thinking this is very much a full glam foundation. I do love a good full coverage myself, and I do love a matte option. So this has a lot of things working in its favor. So I will of course keep that in mind throughout the day and let you know what happens. Another thing to mention is that they did release a setting spray with this foundation. Now the bottle of the setting spray looks really, really beautiful, and they're definitely of course designed to work together. But I am very firmly in the camp that if you are selling a $40, $50, $60 foundation, the foundation should be able to perform beautifully on its own, and I should not have to buy the companion product to make it work well. I did the same thing with the Huda Beauty Easy Blur. She did release a primer with that one. I didn't pick up the primer for the exact same reason, and I ended up super loving that foundation. So while it's possible this may work better with the setting spray, I don't want to have to buy an extra product. This should just be good on its own. So we are going to test that throughout the day. I'll keep wearing this. I'll show you what this looks like in natural lighting, and I will be back at the very end of the day to show you my final thoughts. All right, so just checking on the foundation in natural lighting, and I do think it looks pretty nice. It actually does look a little bit glowier than when I first put it on, and it's only been about an hour or two, and a lot of the glow I'm noticing is definitely coming from my T-zone, which is the area that I powdered. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but I actually do quite like how this looks. I definitely love the coverage level. There's no denying that, but I will check in with you guys in a little bit. All right, so we have now reached the 8-hour mark. It's the very end of the day. So the first thing I noticed is that my nose and chin have definitely broken down terribly. Now, I'm not really surprised by that because my nose and my chin are always the first spots to wear down. My nose just from general touching during the day, and definitely after eating, my chin definitely doesn't always fare the best. I will say the foundation is looking kind of heavy around here especially. It's not terrible. There's definitely a lot worse foundations that have done something like that, but it is looking a little bit heavy. And I do feel like I'm a little bit glowier than I expected for a soft matte foundation. And touching my face, I can still feel the foundation. It does feel like it's dried down a little bit from when I first put it on 8+ hours ago, but it is not fully dried down, which I expected it to be. So as for the claims of this foundation, it says that it's blurring. I didn't really notice that personally. Soft matte, yes. As for the second skin and weightless, I do not think that's true because this is one that I could definitely see on my skin all day long when I put it on. Now I can still see it on my skin. It looks a bit heavier now than it did initially, so I definitely do not think this has a second skin natural finish to it by any means. This also claims it's weightless. I honestly think it's a little bit heavier. It's not terribly heavy. It's not a 2016 matte foundation heavy, but it's definitely quite a bit heavier than some other foundations I've tried recently. It's definitely far heavier than my NARS Light Reflecting, the Dior that I tried recently, the Huda Easy Blur, even the One Size matte foundation. It's definitely heavier than all of those. I do think it is a hydrating formula. I definitely don't feel like it clung to any dry patches. It was never uncomfortable, and it definitely didn't look dehydrated at any point throughout the day. So I definitely do think this is a nicely hydrating foundation for supposedly being a matte formula and being so full coverage. It also says it's not settling, and I definitely noticed the opposite of that. I definitely felt like it really quickly settled into my smile lines before I was even done finishing up my makeup. I wore this a couple days ago. My husband noticed the settling, so for him to notice, I definitely think that says something. But I will say it is a hydrating formula, and it gives a really, really beautiful coverage. So I can definitely say that for the product. And I do kind of like that you get a little tiny bit more in this bottle than you do the majority of other foundations. What I don't like is the shade. I find a little bit odd. The shade I have works fine for me. I can definitely make it work. but it's definitely a little bit strange for a Zero Cool Rosy. I don't love that it felt a bit heavy. I don't love that I could see it sitting on my skin all day, and I was kind of confused as to why a soft matte foundation still felt a little bit tacky throughout the day and throughout application. I didn't really understand that, and I really didn't like that it settled so quickly, and I'm still confused as to why I'm looking a little bit glowy. I have a very dry skin type, and this is a soft matte foundation. I really shouldn't be noticing a ton of glow, but I am. So I don't completely dislike this foundation, but I don't love it either. I think that there are definitely foundations in my collection that I like far more than this. I love the coverage that this gives. This is definitely a very full glam type foundation, but I don't love it for my own preferences. Just when I have some other options out there that do give me a matte finish and do dry down, but actually are super lightweight and have that more skin-like finish, I don't know that this one is necessarily for me. It's not a terrible foundation by any means, and I will definitely continue to wear it, but am I going to reach for it as much as I reach for some of my others? No. I also don't know how those with oily skin types are going to feel about this, given that I think it's a little bit glowy toward the end of the day and a little bit heavy. So let me know all of your thoughts down below. I love hearing from you guys so much. Are you interested in this one? Did you try it already? Let me know your thoughts. And if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!